Dallas Jenkins. The untold journey behind the phenomenon, The Chosen. In an era where cinema is dominated by billion-dollar blockbusters, where faith is often reduced to a decorative backdrop rather than a central theme, very few filmmakers dare to choose the hardest path of all, portraying the life of Jesus with authenticity, humanity, and global resonance. Dallas Jenkins, the creator behind the series The Chosen, is one of those rare exceptions.
That was truly my own.
His journey was not a string of effortless victories or a straightforward road to glory. Instead, it was woven from failure, tears, loneliness, and moments when he nearly abandoned his dream of filmmaking altogether. Yet it was precisely in those darkest moments that the seeds of one of the most inspiring modern projects were planted. This article explores the life of Dallas Jenkins from his childhood in a family overflowing with words and storytelling to the devastating failure that almost ended his career, and finally to the extraordinary path that led The Chosen to become a global phenomenon. Childhood and the foundation of a storyteller. Dallas Jenkins was born in 1975 in Illinois into a family where storytelling was more than a gift. It was a way of life. His father, Jerry B. Jenkins, is the author of the Left Behind series, one of the best-selling Christian book franchises in the world. From a young age, Dallas grew up surrounded by the smell of printer's ink, unfinished manuscripts, and conversations about faith, humanity, and the transformative power of a story. While Jerry Jenkins built worlds with words, Dallas became captivated by the power of moving images. He would watch films with childlike wonder, fascinated by how color, sound, and lighting could stir the human heart. His family gave him three foundational gifts: a deep-rooted faith, a worldview centered on meaning and purpose, professional exposure to storytelling, an invaluable environment few are fortunate to have, a desire to create something of his own beyond being just the son of Jerry Jenkins. However, growing up under such a towering legacy also came with pressure. Dallas often wondered, will I ever make my own mark, or will I forever live in my father's shadow? First steps: searching for identity in the film world. At Northwestern College, now the University of Northwestern, St. Paul, Dallas began experimenting with filmmaking through short films. They were far from perfect, rough, unpolished, sometimes naive, but they became his training ground. Through them, he learned several crucial lessons. Filmmaking is collaborative, not a one-man endeavor. A director leads through listening, not command. Authenticity is far more powerful than preachy dialogue. Early works, such as Midnight Clear 2006 and What If 2010, already displayed the signature elements of a Dallas Jenkins film: deeply human characters, themes of redemption and hope, emotional storytelling without forced religious messaging. Though these films gained some recognition within Christian circles, Dallas remained on the fringes of the industry, far from mainstream audiences. The most painful fall, the failure that nearly ended everything. In 2017, Dallas received what he believed was his golden opportunity directing The Resurrection of Gavin Stone, a faith-based comedy backed by major studios such as Blumhouse Tilt and WWE Studios. This was supposed to be his ticket into Hollywood. But the film flopped at the box office. With a budget of $2 million, it only earned about $2.3 million, a disappointing result for studios and a devastating blow for Dallas. For the industry, it was just another failed release. For Dallas, it felt like a verdict. He came home, sat in silence with his wife, and wondered, has God closed the door on my filmmaking career? Was I ever truly called to do this? The disappointment ate away at him. After years of hard work, his biggest opportunity had turned into his biggest disaster. It seemed like his filmmaking journey might have ended right there. A flicker of light. The birth of the shepherd. When Dallas was at his lowest point, he was asked to create a short Christmas film for his local church. That film was The Shepherd, a retelling of the Nativity through the eyes of a disabled shepherd. No big budget, no large crew, no commercial ambitions. Just a humble short film, yet filled with sincerity. When released online,
That's why
The shepherd deeply moved viewers. People shared it widely, praising its fresh perspective and emotional depth. Then a bold idea struck Dallas.
What began as a simple
What if I made a multi-season series about the life of Jesus?
Unprecedented,
Not a 2-hour film, but dozens of hours exploring every story, every person, every moment. It was an unprecedented idea. From the ashes, the birth of the chosen. No studio would fund a long-form religious series from a director whose last film had failed. So Dallas chose an unthinkable path. Crowdfunding, partnering with Angel Studios, then VidAngel. He launched an experimental model. Viewers become direct investors. The series would be completely free to watch. Those who believed in it could pay it forward. The results shocked Hollywood. Over $10 million is raised in a short time, becoming the largest crowd-funded media project in history. It was undeniable. People longed for meaningful stories. Faith still had a place in art, and Dallas Jenkins had reignited something powerful, a revolutionary success. Portraying Jesus through human eyes, The Chosen broke every expectation for religious media. 1. A slow pace that reaches deep into the soul. No constant miracles, no rushed summaries of Scripture. Instead, the series focuses on people: Matthew, the lonely tax collector; Peter, impulsive but fiercely loyal; Mary Magdalene, haunted by her past; Nicodemus, torn between power and truth. For the first time, audiences saw biblical figures not as flawless icons, but as real human beings.
His divinity.
2.
It simply makes
A human, relatable Jesus.
I swear
He laughs, he jokes, he gets tired, he weeps, he embraces the broken. It is the most intimate cinematic depiction of Jesus ever made. 3. A groundbreaking distribution method. No Netflix, no cable television. Viewers watched through the Chosen app, free and ad-free. This built a global community, organic word-of-mouth growth, a sense of belonging to the journey, a global phenomenon, impact beyond religion. Only a few years after its debut, The Chosen exploded worldwide, translated into over 100 languages, tens of millions of viewers across continents, screenings in churches, schools, hospitals, and prisons. Many first-time Bible readers inspired by the series. Remarkably, it resonated with Catholics, Protestants, Orthodox Christians, even people with no religious background, a level of unity rarely seen in faith-based media. Why The Chosen touches millions? 1. Authenticity, no artificial preaching, no forced messaging, just honest storytelling. 2. Deeply human characters. Every character mirrors universal struggles. 3. Humility of the storyteller. Dallas often says, The Chosen is not a replacement for Scripture. It's an invitation to engage with it more deeply. 4. A movement, not just a show. Viewers testify that the series helped them rediscover faith, overcome depression, forgive themselves, heal broken relationships, understand love on a deeper level. A lesson for dreamers. Dallas Jenkins's journey. His life is a testament that failure does not end the journey. A closed door can open a greater path. Persistence outshines talent. When your purpose is great enough, a community will rise with you. If the resurrection of Gavin Stone had succeeded, The Chosen likely would never have existed. Sometimes failure is the doorway to miracles. When a filmmaker turns sorrow into light. Dallas Jenkins didn't just create a series, he reignited hope in a skeptical era. He proved that art, when crafted with sincerity and heart, can heal, connect, enlighten, and transform lives. The Chosen is not merely a show. It is an invitation to see Jesus and yourself with new eyes. What Dallas created transcends cinema. It is a legacy of courage, endurance, and a faith that never gave up. Rosalinda Celentano. The shocking truth behind the demonic face in The Passion of the Christ. You may not know her name, but chances are you have seen her face, a cold, breath-stopping, haunting, almost genderless face that appeared in one of the most controversial films in modern cinema, The Passion of the Christ. No dialogue, no unnecessary gestures, yet with nothing but her eyes and a presence that felt as if it came from another world. Rosalinda Celentano instilled unease in millions of viewers across the globe as Satan. But who is the woman behind that chilling face? An actress, a model, an eccentric artist born from darkness, or a sensitive soul trying to escape the enormous shadow of her famous family? The life of Rosalinda Celentano is a journey of struggle, identity, invisible burdens, and above all, the journey of becoming herself in a world that constantly tried to mold her into someone else. And born beneath the spotlight, yet belonging to her own darkness, Rosalinda Celentano was born on July 15, 1968, in Rome, Italy, into a family whose names had already become legends in the Italian entertainment industry. Her father, Adriano Celentano, singer-actor, cultural icon, known as Il Moleggiato. Her mother, Claudia Mori, actress, singer, successful producer. Her siblings, Rosita and Giacomo, both pursued artistic paths. Rosalinda grew up in a household where film directors, musicians, and artists were regular visitors. But amid this noisy world, she was the opposite. A quiet child. Introverted. A girl who preferred drawing, sitting alone, retreating into her own world, a world far removed from the glamorous expectations placed upon her. The name Celentano was a crown, but for Rosalinda, it was also a chain. From a young age, she was compared, judged, and pushed toward roles she never wanted to play. She realized early on that she didn't fit the traditional image of femininity. Her beauty, sharp, androgynous, unusual, made her both striking and out of place. Yet it was precisely that sense of displacement that would later help her create one of the most unforgettable portrayals of Satan in cinema history, stepping into art driven not by fame, but by difference. Instead of using her family's influence to land major roles, Rosalinda chose a slower, deeper path. During the 1990s, she appeared in several Italian art house films. Not commercial hits, not mainstream, but spaces where she could experiment with characters and explore psychological depth. Filmmakers didn't seek her out because she was Celentano's daughter. They came for something else. Her strange magnetic aura, an interplay of fragility and danger. At the same time, she ventured into fashion. In an era where Italy idolized classic feminine beauty, Rosalinda, with her sharp features, short hair, and half-shadowed gaze, became a symbol of non-traditional aesthetics. She didn't perform. She existed. A presence unlike any other. And that presence caught the attention of one ambitious and controversial Hollywood director, Mel Gibson. The Passion of the Christ, the role that shook the world. In 2003, Mel Gibson was searching for an actor to portray Satan in The Passion of the Christ, a character meant to embody a disturbing blend of male and female beauty and horror humanity, and something beyond it. He needed a face that was gender ambiguous, emotionless yet unsettling, soft and sharp at the same time, iconic rather than character-like. He found all of that in Rosalinda. On-screen shaved eyebrows, pale ghost-like face, deep cold eyes, slow, smooth, serpent-like movements. Rosalinda became what critics later called the most beautiful and terrifying Satan in film history. No dialogue, no special effects. Her eyes alone sent shivers down the spine of audiences. The infamous scene where Satan carries a grotesque, deformed baby, a twisted parody of the Madonna and Child, sparked global outrage and fascination. Her name spread across the world overnight. But fame always has a price. The cost of an iconic role, fame, pressure, and a cage of her own creation. After the film's success, the media labeled her the face of the devil, the hauntingly beautiful Satan, the best silent villain ever portrayed. But to Rosalinda, this felt like being locked inside her own role. Many directors approached her afterward, but mostly for roles that resembled Satan, eerie, emotionless, supernatural characters. She became a victim of her own brilliance. Yet Rosalinda refused to live inside that cage. She returned to painting, photography, fashion, and art films, even though they brought far less money and recognition. Because for her, art was not a career, it was oxygen. battling illness, depression, and judgment. Behind the spotlight, Rosalinda was far more vulnerable than people imagined. She revealed that she struggled for years with severe depression, faced significant health issues, endured the pressure of her family's fame, was scrutinized by the media for her looks and personal life, was judged for openly being a lesbian in conservative Italy. Yet through all this pain, she found her artistic voice. Her paintings, photographs, and performances all carry the quiet suffering of someone walking between light and darkness, a symbol of truth, loving living and fighting authentically. Rosalinda Celentano is not the kind of artist who seeks fame. She doesn't try to please the public. She never pretends to be perfect. She chooses to live honestly, love honestly, create honestly, confess honestly, even when honesty makes her misunderstood or labeled as strange. This sincerity made her a symbol for those who don't fit societal norms, have non-traditional gender expression, possess an unconventional artistic mind, struggle silently with internal battles. Rosalinda never tried to become a symbol, but she became one simply by living authentically. Art as her refuge and her rawest truth. To Rosalinda, art is not a profession. It's therapy. It's survival after the Passion of the Christ. Instead of capitalizing on Hollywood fame, she retreated into painting and photography. In her tiny studio filled with natural light, unfinished canvases, and the smell of oil paint, she painted her loneliness, her fear of depression, her fractured inner self. Every stroke felt like opening a wound, but opening it to heal. Art kept her from being permanently frozen as the face of the devil. It saved her, exposed her, and reflected the corners of her soul she hid from the world. Life beyond the screen, intense love, and fragile vulnerability. Despite looking strong, mysterious, and cold on camera in real life, Rosalinda is incredibly sensitive. In one rare interview, she said, "I love with my whole heart, and that's why it hurts." Being openly lesbian in traditional Italy invited criticism, but she never hid her identity. She fell for strong women with fire in their hearts. Yet her own fragility sometimes made love difficult. But she never apologized for loving deeply. At the aftermath of fame, when a single role becomes destiny, no matter how many films or exhibitions she does for most global audiences, she remains Satan. At public events, people called her La Satana, the Devil Woman, the most beautiful demon of the 21st century. Some were fascinated, some afraid, some misunderstood. Some thought she truly embodied evil. She once said, "I played the role with the heart of an actress, but some people look at me as if I really were that character." This is the tragedy of actors who perform too well, trapped by their own success. Rosalinda accepted this fate with quiet grace. Her later career, quiet, selective, and profoundly deep. After such a breakthrough, most actors would chase Hollywood.
True art does not hide
Rosalinda
behind
didn't.
beauty. It exposes
She chose
the
meaningful
truth,
roles,
forces us
complex
to confront it,
characters,
and demands
European
that we
art
feel
films,
something real.
independent projects. Directors loved her, not for fame, but for her eyes that told stories, her unique presence, her authenticity, the emotional weight she brought to every scene. She became the artist admired by other artists. Androgynous beauty from strange to iconic. In the 90s, her androgynous look was mocked. She was not feminine enough, too strange, too cold. But time changed. Fashion changed. Society changed. And suddenly the world was searching for faces like hers. Rosalinda didn't follow the trend. She was ahead of it. And years of depression, the silent battle of a fragile yet fierce soul. Few know that Rosalinda fought depression for years. She described it as a room without a door, darkness without sound, drowning inside your own thoughts. While the world saw her as the embodiment of darkness, she was fighting real darkness inside. But she didn't fall. She sought art, love, stillness, nature, self-understanding. She said, "I don't try to escape the darkness. I learn to walk through it." It is a sentence that encapsulates her life. Rosalinda's true legacy, not Satan, but herself. Her greatest legacy is not her portrayal of Satan. It is her courage to live differently, raw honesty, ability to turn pain into art, refusal to conform, resilience, authenticity. Mel Gibson chose her because he needed someone beyond categorization. And Rosalinda herself has lived that way all her life. A singular cut in cinematic history and in the hearts that seek truth. Rosalinda Celentano's life is like a decades-long art film, quiet, haunting, profound. Born under stardom, yet never a typical star. Gifted with rare beauty, yet paying a price for it. Living with pain, yet creating art from it. She has fought judgment, fame's shadow, identity expectations, loneliness, depression. Yet in one destined moment, she embodied Satan and became immortal in cinema. But it is not the demon's face we remember most. It is Rosalinda, the human being. She is not perfect, but she is real.
Authenticity isn't about
And that is why the world cannot forget her.
brave enough to be real.
In a world obsessed with perfection, she dares to be vulnerable. In a world demanding conformity, she insists on difference. In a world craving light, she walks through darkness with courage. She is not a hero, not an angel, not a demon. She is a soul with many edges, sharp, soft, wounded, luminous. And that is what makes her unforgettable. Artificial intelligence and the hidden code in the Holy Shroud of Turin. When science faces the unexplainable. Imagine this scene. Inside a colossal supercomputer, lines of code are racing, and artificial intelligence algorithms are scanning millions of data points extracted from an ancient linen cloth. AI is not looking at a face, not analyzing bloodstains or dirt. It digs deep into each fiber, searching for invisible patterns hidden within the microscopic structure of the cloth. Then suddenly the system stops. It has found something unusual, a form of mathematical symmetry, repeating over and over a highly sophisticated order encoded right into the threads. It does not resemble anything a medieval artisan could have created, nor does it match any known natural process that modern science can explain. And the object lying under this digital microscope is the Shroud of Turin, one of the most controversial artifacts in the history of religion and science. Has artificial intelligence just discovered a kind of hidden code within the cloth that many believe once wrapped the body of Jesus after his crucifixion? Or is it all just a bizarre coincidence? The Shroud of Turin, an artifact that splits belief and skepticism. The Shroud of Turin is a linen cloth about 4.4 meters long and over a meter wide, bearing a faint image of a man who appears to have endured brutal torture marks resembling scourging, circular wounds like those made by thorns, injuries to the hands, feet, and side. To many Christians, this is the burial shroud of Jesus, a sacred relic, a tangible trace of the Passion. To skeptics, it is nothing more than a sophisticated medieval forgery created to attract pilgrims. Humanity has set foot on the moon. We have decoded the human genome, and yet to this day we still cannot agree about a piece of cloth. The case closed verdict of 1988. And the ending, that wasn't in 1988. It seemed everything had finally been settled. Church authorities allowed a small sample to be cut from the edge of the cloth, then divided and sent to 3 renowned laboratories in Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona. The method used was radiocarbon dating C14, an extremely precise technique that counts C14 atoms to estimate the age of organic material. The results made the world either sigh with relief or disappointment. The cloth dated to between 1260 and 1390 AD. Newspapers everywhere proclaimed the Turin Shroud is a medieval creation, not from the time of Jesus. For many, the case file was considered closed. But apparently, the shroud did not accept being buried so easily. At the 1898 negative photograph, the first shock. Let's go back to 1898, nearly a century before the C14 tests. An Italian lawyer named Secondo Pia was granted permission to photograph the shroud for the first time. When he developed the plates in his dark room, something incredible appeared. On the photographic negative, the image of the man on the cloth appeared clearly, as if it were a positive image. In other words, the cloth itself behaves like a photographic negative hundreds of years before photography was invented. This forced many people to pause and think, how could a medieval artist create a negative image that when photographed would yield a realistic positive? At a time when the concept of negative photography simply did not exist, and this was only the first mystery, and an image shallow to just a few hundred nanometers later, studies revealed, the image on the shroud only exists on the topmost fibers of the linen, with a depth of no more than a few hundred nanometers. For comparison, a human hair is about 80,000 nanometers thick. There is no trace of ink paint or pigment penetrating deeply into the fibers. No brush strokes, no directional marks. It is as if the linen fibers were lightly chemically altered at the surface, producing a very shallow yellow-brown tone rather than being painted on. Scientists tried burning sculptures, using acids, applying pigments, contact transfer methods. Some experiments managed to partially imitate certain characteristics of the shroud's image, but no method could fully reproduce all of its unique features. Its shallow uniform shows no signs of brushwork, and yet encodes special spatial information. Thus, the shroud encodes 3D data like a body scan. In the 1970s, researchers used the VP-8 image analyzer, a device used by NASA to analyze planetary surface images. When they fed the shroud image into the device, what happened stunned them. The shroud's image produced a coherent three-dimensional model of the man's face and body. Darker regions, like the tip of the nose, were understood as being closer. Lighter regions, parts farther away, were interpreted as more distant. In other words, the brightness and darkness of the image directly correspond to the distance from the body. This is not the kind of shading used in paintings to fake 3D. It is actual depth information. From a 2D image on cloth, people could naturally reconstruct a 3D map of the body. This is not a normal property of paintings or photographs. It is a spatial information layer encoded in a remarkably subtle way. Cracks in the 1988 conclusion, the problematic corner. Although the 1988 C14 results seemed solid from the beginning, quite a few experts questioned the sampling location. The sample came from a corner of the cloth, an area that had been touched the most over centuries of display. It was also a region likely to have been repaired, rewoven, or altered after fire damage. The shroud has survived several disasters, especially the fire of 1532, which scorched and burned holes into it. The nuns at the time meticulously patched the burn holes, sewed the shroud onto a backing cloth, and the C14 sample area was right near this region. Years later, chemist Raymond Rogers, who had worked with the 1978 research team, obtained tiny remnants of the 1988 sample. Under the microscope, he observed the sample fibers did not match fibers from other areas of the shroud. There was a layer of plant-based gum, cotton fibers interwoven with the linen, traces of dye. Meanwhile, the main body of the shroud is pure linen. He concluded the tested sample was very likely from a repaired section of the cloth rewoven in the Middle Ages, not from the original fabric. In simple terms, we tried to date an ancient building by testing fresh plaster from a recent renovation. Of course, the result comes out young. Other studies using vibrational spectroscopy, X-ray analysis, etc., proposed much older dates. Some near 2,000 years ago, even pre-Christian. The problem is these methods have nowhere near the level of consensus that C14 does, so the debate continues. An artificial intelligence enters and flips the question around, while arguments over the cloth's age remained unresolved. AI entered the scene. Researchers took ultra-high-resolution scans of the shroud, fed them into neural networks, and gave the AI no religious context and no assumptions. The sole instruction: find patterns and hidden structures in this image data. The results were so startling that even the scientists themselves were unsettled. AI found that the Shroud's image is not just a picture, but resembles a data set encoded with extraordinary sophistication. Subtle yet consistent geometric symmetries, recurring mathematical ratios across the face, hands, and torso, an underlying order that is unlikely to be random. It is as if we accidentally discovered an invisible watermark, a technical blueprint, engraved into the fabric structure. More importantly, these structures do not depend on the age of the cloth, but on how the image was formed. AI did not prove whether the cloth is old or medieval. What it said was, whether medieval or ancient, the way this image was created is far from ordinary. A strange physical law hidden in brightness and shadow, using tools like principal component analysis, PCA, and noise filters AI, gradually stripped away the human figure, the part we normally see. Instead, it saw a pure field of information. The distribution of light and dark is not random. It follows a consistent mathematical rule, as if governed by some kind of physical law. Imagine a body lying in space and some form of energy emitted from it, acting on a cloth placed a short distance away. Where the cloth is closer to the body, the signal is stronger. The image is darker. Where the cloth is farther, the signal is weaker. The image is lighter. AI showed that this relationship holds across the entire Shroud with astonishing coherence. This is not how light and shadow behave in ordinary painting or photography, where artists intentionally shade to create the illusion of depth. Here, the Shroud is not faking depth, it is encoding actual depth data. For a medieval person to produce this by hand, they would have to be a master painter, a mathematical genius, an expert in spatial physics, and able to work at a microscopic scale on fabric fibers. It sounds almost impossible. A hidden geometric harmony, like a music score in the body's structure. I also discovered elegant geometric proportions, the distance between the eyes, the proportions of the hands, the curvature of the chest, the arrangement of key points on the face and body. All of these relate through repeating ratios like a kind of geometric harmony. As in music, certain notes harmonize beautifully because their frequencies are related by simple, pleasing ratios. Here, the points on the Shroud's human body obey harmonious mathematical relationships. To ensure the AI wasn't just seeing what it wanted to see, researchers had the system analyze other ancient textiles and other works of art. Result: no similar structure was found. These geometric scaffolds appear only on the Shroud of Turin, a phenomenon, not just an artifact. From all this data, an uncomfortable conclusion emerges. The Shroud of Turin does not behave like a work of art. It behaves like the outcome of a phenomenon. Several physical hypotheses have been proposed. Corona discharge, a type of electrical discharge around a body that could imprint an image onto cloth at a short distance. Intense UV radiation, a brief but powerful burst of light altering the surface of fibers at the nanometer scale. Some experiments have managed to reproduce the shallow depth of the image or achieve a roughly similar look, but no experiment so far has recreated a shallow image containing full 3D information with hidden geometric patterns that remain stable for hundreds of years. As one physicist put it, the Shroud is not just an object, it looks like the outcome of an event. So what exactly is this? With AI revealing a new layer of information, the question, how old is the cloth, suddenly becomes less central. More important is, by what mechanism was this image created? We are left with a few possibilities, each one mind-bending. 1. A medieval forgery using a lost ultra-advanced technique. Someone in the Middle Ages invented a method that could create an image only a few hundred nanometers deep, encode 3D data, embed hidden geometric ratios, long before we understood photography, digital imaging, or nanoscale material science. And that technique later disappeared completely, leaving no trace. 2. A natural phenomenon, not yet identified. Some physical chemical process under very specific conditions produced such an image. It has never been reproduced in the lab or has not been correctly described. 3. The trace of an event beyond our current understanding. This is the interpretation many believers link to the resurrection, a kind of information burst from a human body imprinted onto the cloth. Science cannot prove this, but it also has yet to provide a more convincing alternative.
as a single data stream.
Exactly.
Whichever possibility you choose, one must admit the Shroud of Turin is anything but ordinary. When AI becomes humanity's third eye, for more than a century, humans have examined the Shroud with the naked eye, magnifying glasses, microscopes, cameras, image analyzers. Now we are seeing it with the eyes of artificial intelligence. AI has no faith, no religious bias. It does not believe or disbelieve in miracles. It simply receives data, processes it, finds patterns, returns structures, and precisely because of that, what it finds is hard to ignore: mathematical structure, geometric motifs, 3D consistency, an image depth only nanometers thin. If the Shroud is a fake, it is a fake that required tools and understanding far beyond what medieval people had. So instead of closing the story, AI has poured fuel on the fire. It has not ended the debate. It has made the debate deeper, tougher, and more fascinating. Science, faith, and unanswered questions. The Shroud of Turin is a perfect example of the fine boundary between science and faith. Science asks, by what mechanism did this form? Can we reproduce it? What does the data say? Faith asks, is this a trace of Christ? Does it bear spiritual meaning? AI plays a curious role. It does not take sides. It does not confirm the Shroud as an authentic relic of Jesus, nor does it support the idea that it's a mere hoax. AI simply points out, there is order here, a layer of information, a mathematical structure that our current hypotheses do not fully explain. Thus, the story is no longer just, is the Shroud real or fake? It becomes, what is the role of information in matter? What phenomena exist that we have not yet named? Might there be other traces in human history we still don't know how to read? One cloth, 2,000 years, and questions for the future. The Shroud of Turin is a strange thing. If it is only a forgery, then it is so sophisticated that it surpasses the capability of the very era to which it is attributed. If it is genuine, in the sense of being linked to the historical Jesus, then it is not just a religious relic, but also one of the greatest challenges science has ever faced in archaeology, material science, and imaging. Artificial intelligence has not deciphered the Shroud. Instead, it shows that beneath what the eye can see, there is a deeper layer of information, like a language of which we've only read the first few letters. One day, science may find a complete answer, either proving the Shroud to be the product of some lost technique or uncovering a physical, biological phenomenon we currently cannot even imagine. Or perhaps the answer will never be fully complete, and the Shroud of Turin will continue to exist as an open question, reminding us that not everything can be neatly closed as a case. Not every mystery is born to be solved. And perhaps it is precisely this unexplained gap that urges us to keep exploring, to keep asking about the universe, about history, about faith, and about ourselves.